What's going on, everyone? It's David from CollX. Welcome back to another episode of the Car Jawn. Now, you're probably noticing that we are not in our normal location. We are on site in Dallas, Texas, with Rogers Healy. Rogers, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Highlight of my entire life is right now.
It's not normal. You said this 2 seconds ago. It's not normal that we are filming a podcast, another podcast, and your podcast. This is where you do your podcast.
Yeah, this is Narnia right now. I mean, I can't believe it actually happened. But yeah, I'm a podcast guest in my podcast studio on a different podcast.
So I just want to give an intro of Rogers Healy of Morrison Seger, venture capitalist, entrepreneur, avid music collector, and also a CollX investor. So first, we'll talk about CollX. We'll talk about tuned in grading, and we'll start there, as you can see. So tell everyone about, we see a lot of hype of collectibles over the last few years during the pandemic. Sports cards boomed. Collectibles in general have boomed. Tell me, let's go back to the beginning. How did you start tuned in grading? Where is it at now? And what's the future hold for the next 6 months of, tell me the backstory of tuned in grading.
So, I mean, I think out of all fairness, so there's three other partners, and then two of the guys, it was their idea. And my backstory, kind of like he said, other than being fortunate to be able to invest in companies like CollX, I've been investing since I was a kid in memorabilia, and not as a seller, but just as someone that I think the word investing can be multi-purposed, whether it's financial or emotional. And I've gotten to the point as a 43-year-old to really feel like I want to be a kid every day. And so, yeah, you mentioned COVID. The pandemic, I think what happened is a lot of things, one of which people like me that were a little bit shy about talking about having sports cards or autographed Don Henley records because it wasn't really cool, all of a sudden it became art, and it became, the fancy term is, an alternative investment. And so when the auctions I would go to monthly went from relatively affordable pricing to not affordable because people were at home and buying, I was like, okay, there's something here. So to kind of land the plane with the backstory of tuned in grading, there's a record store here in Dallas. It's the largest in the country, called Josie Records. And the founders are dear friends of mine, and they are on the Mount Rushmore of record heads. They know more about every record than anybody on planet Earth. And so I kind of boldly approached them about 3 or 4 years ago and just said, hey, I'm here every Sunday.
There's something here.
Yeah, well, I just, how do I become an investor in the store? And they said, look, we appreciate that. We're good, but we've been following your journey on Rogers Music Tour and all this other stuff. And so they said, what about this? And I was like, holy crap, this is lightning in a bottle. And so anyway, one thing led to another. We got prototypes. We had people from Alibaba helping us put stuff together, did a lot of research, and 3.5 years later, we launched. And so, it's a way to go and bring a different level of investing to a space that's never been, highlighted before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So talk me through the process. Obviously, we had the grading here. I'm trying to read backwards as this is in front of us.
Yeah.
But so you're grading the record. Obviously, can they be graded sealed and opened?
Yeah, short answer is yes. Right now, so we're in May of 2023. Right now, it's really single LPs, and very ambitious founders, 4 of us. We're gonna do everything from cassettes to CDs to 8-tracks, etc. But we really wanted to dominate the market, and right now it's just single LP. So it can be sealed, it can be opened, it can be autographed. We have extension partnerships with companies that authenticate, which is great. But yeah, I mean, right now it reminds me of the first time I saw a comic book encapsulated or a video game. People are like, what? How do you play? It's like, no, you got to look at it differently. So yeah, it's a display piece, and we have proprietary ways of going and encapsulating the devices through patents and systems. And again, it just looks like a piece of art in itself.
Now, there's holy grails in sports cards and comic books. What's the creme de la creme of vinyl records?
Yeah, so I think that's what's fun about this too, is that what we're doing is we're just giving a grade. We're not giving a value. And so, for people like me, I'm a collector, again, sports cards, music, etc., where Don Henley, we named our daughter Henley after Don Henley. So anything Eagles or Don Henley to me is a creme de la creme. And I think the marketplace is going to actually, show value. But with that being said, as a music collector, the Bob Dylans, the Led Zeppelins, the Kurt Cobains of the world, those are always a more expensive piece for memorabilia and for signatures. But again, this is kind of not the unknown, but it's a new frontier because we really haven't seen anything trade that's been encapsulated. So, the cliche Beatles, Elvis, et cetera, they're always going to demand a price, but it could also be something that was a random, test printing in Germany for Milli Vanilli B-sides. And I think that the market's going to see this, rapidly increase as far as the opportunities.
And there's first prints, I imagine, too.
Yeah.
There's like different, error
Yep.
vinyl records. Like, what's the kind of backstory of that, of like finding like rare vinyls out there?
It just gives people a reason. Like COVID, people went through their attics to go find sports cards they had when they were a kid, and that might have been in 1985 versus 1965. But for this, it's a reason to go to garage sales differently. It's a reason to go to record stores differently. It's a reason to get on eBay differently. So I think that, again, we're going to have stuff that's uncovered, and there's databases through companies like Discogs that have relative record of every record that has been printed. The fancy term is pressed in history. But there's going to be stuff that you're going to see, even like a Taylor Swift album at Target might be a different color because they had a limited release. That becomes a collectible item to a Taylor Swift fan that historically wouldn't buy something like this. So, it really is, there's unlimited potential. But one of the decisions we made is we did not want to set the value. The market's going to set the value for us.
So, what is your holy grail of vinyl records, and do you have it already, or are you trying to obtain that said holy grail?
Yeah, so I think that a true collector, which we both are, as cliche as it sounds, your favorite piece is your next piece. The difference between me and most collectors is nothing I have is for sale. And so, I have my favorite musicians. Morrison Seger, my VC, I named it after Jim Morrison, Van Morrison, and Bob Seger, who are three of my favorites. We have a human named Healy. I love the Temptations, love Billy Joel, and there's stuff that I just buy because it means something to me. But throughout this, I'm going to probably go and spend stupid money on something that it might be a Milli Vanilli B-side pressing from Germany that's just kind of fun to have. But again, the buzzword as an investor outside of being an obsessed collector is alternative investing, where the stock market might be in flux. The real estate market might be too difficult to enter. And so being able to buy something and hold on to it and be the first, to do this, there's value there. So for me, I have to take a relatively unbiased approach. But when there is something that pops up that I see, I'll probably be a consumer and a user for it as well.
Last question about Tuned In, and we'll get into collect stuff in a second. What a year from now today, where is Tuned In grading? You grading cassettes, like you said?
Yeah.
You guys are out and about. You have other partnerships you probably will be announcing. A year from now, where is Tuned In?
Yeah, I think it's just scaled. And as a founder, I've been able to be blessed with starting some companies. And I think, like a lot of people, it's a better bet to invest on a second-time founder than a first. And so the intention we're taking from this is to scale this thing relatively quickly, but to own the market and to dominate it. Let our ambition be relatively curbed by what is logical. So yeah, tapes, 8-track CDs, double LPs, 33s, anything in music is great. But back to the CollX thing, what I like about CollX as a user, as an investor, and as a friend is the overlapping opportunities are just incredibly significant. So yeah, it's a new frontier. We're building this to grow it. We're building it to increase revenue, but we're also not looking to sell the company, which gives it, a different reason to go and see this thing actually really, really work.
Now, you mentioned CollX. You are a CollX investor.
Yep.
So tell me, and obviously you invest in a multitude of other companies. Goat Fuel to name one, with Jerry Rice, which is awesome.
Yeah.
This is one that's not signed, by the way. So if anyone's
I'll
watching
sign
the
it
video,
for you.
everyone watching the video, Jerry Rice went into stores, right, and signed these. So that's kind of cool.
The GOAT. So Jerry Rice, the GOAT of football, is now the GOAT of sports energy, believe it or not.
Love it. But back to CollX. So what made you want to get a part of the CollX team? Obviously, your passion for music is also for passion in sports. You see your office here. You have tons of jerseys from past and present clients. You're a sports junkie, music junkie. I feel like they're the same kind of brother and sister at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So tell me your experiences with getting to know the CollX team and just what made you realize the vision that we're on and we're growing and making some noise in the hobby.
Man, I got lucky. I was the way it happened. I was having lunch with one of our LPs for Morrison Seger, and he had invested in Goat Fuel, and I was just taking lunch to say thanks. And like investors do, you kind of trade stories, trade deals. And he didn't know I was into this space. He's like, "You got to be kidding me! I just invested in a company called CollX. You'd really like it." And I was like, "Tell me more." And then within an hour, I was on the phone with Ted, and then obviously that's how we kind of met. But as an investor, there's a lot of cliche sayings, and the one I heard first, which is really overused, but it's valuable, is you bet on the jockey, not the horse.
I say that all the time. If someone's watching this video, I say that literally in our office too.
But I think with CollX, you could bet on the horse and the jockey. And
For sure.
So for me, it was, again, I think I came into this with kind of a lethal mindset where I know venture capital, I know business, and I know collectibles, and I know how those worlds have not really ever overlapped. And obviously, tuned in grading is going to be, a disruptor and a player in the space whenever the time comes up. But it just made sense. And I met Ted, and I was like, man, this is a good dude. He was with his mom in Florida. When I talked to him, I was like, his priorities are in line. He's a great dad. He's a great husband. And that's the kind of person I would want to invest in general, outside of, the financial commitment. And so I saw it. And then again, you start to see the numbers where as of today, they're approaching 1 million active users.
Yep.
That's fire. It's a bonfire. So it just made sense. And then, in the world of investing too, there's a whole strategic investor, which I think I am. And I think we are, where we can bring people to the table, whether it's Collecticon this weekend or other friends. And it just worked really, really, really naturally. And again, it made me a bigger fan.
Yeah.
I can justify spending an hour on Saturday looking at my cards. My wife was like, what are you doing? You're not 7. I was like, this is market research. I have to do it. So yeah, it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the cool thing that we are experiencing as the CollX team is, you are becoming a kid again. You're going down memory lane. You're scanning your Jose Canseco cards, or you're not realizing that you might have your sister, your grandmother who someone's recently passed on their cards, and next thing you know, they have a decent Mickey Mantle card, and there's value in that. And I think CollX is helping that out too. But also too, what I'm excited about is what CollX can get to down the road, which is could CollX be getting into vinyl records, comic books, and DVDs, VHSs, stuff like that. So
yeah, from a branding perspective, I've tuned in grading. I came up with the name because it had a double meaning, right? Like if you think about a music or radio dial, you got to tune it in to get the perfect one. But also, we're tuned in where we know this space as well or better than anybody. CollX is not CollX sports card. It's not CollX Pokemon cards. It's CollX. And so from a branding perspective, they really have the opportunity to go and have this company, encompass so many different verticals, which again, as an investor, that was an opportunity for me. So yeah, I'm sure that later on down the road, maybe even by the time this airs, hopefully there's a collab opportunity with, two companies.
Absolutely.
But, yeah,
for sure. So Rogers, tell everyone to learn more about yourself, your business, and also your multitude of businesses, especially Tuned In. How should people check out Tuned In, and especially if they want to send in a vinyl to get graded? What's that process like right now?
Yeah, just tunedingrading.com, social media, Tuned In Grading as well. We're very responsive. We take a lot of pride in what we're doing. We're building a really, really great team. And it's also at a price point that's affordable. It's $50. And that to me is, we could have probably done 2 or 3 times that, but we really want to take this, we want to scale it. So yeah, just find us online and hit us up. And we're really great with communicating on our social side too, where it's adding a layer of experience to a relatively flat industry of grading memorabilia. And so I have swag. I'm wearing Tuned In Grading swag.
Always. The hats are fire too, I must say.
And then, just in case, I have my CollX t-shirt on.
There you go.
Too. So yeah.
You did that on you didn't do that on purpose.
No,
He just wears that.
I wear it every day.
He wears that every Friday.
Yeah.
So Rogers, thank you so much for letting us crash your studio.
You got it, man.
This is a remote podcast of the Card Jawn, powered by Card Dealer Pro and CollX. So we appreciate it. Thanks for everyone for watching. Thank you again, Rogers, for all that you do for CollX, Tuned In Grading. Let's take Tuned In Grading and CollX to the moon, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
I like the moon.
Right. Yeah. Or I should say Mars, not moon.
Mars?
Isn't Mars farther than the moon?
Maybe. Let's see you in Mars.
See you in Mars.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone.